The following is a conversation with two Stephen Cicirelli. You heard it right, both share the same name, but they are unrelated. One is a professor of English literature, the other one is security expert and was on a podcast before. We are discussing philosophical aspects of AI and impact of AI on education, job market, and many other topics. If you enjoy it, please subscribe, comment, press the like button, and if you really, really like it, there is a Patreon link in the description. Welcome, everybody. I'm saying everybody because this is the first podcast I have with two people, which is interesting because both of them have the same name, Stephen Cicirelli 1 and Stephen Cicirelli 2. Stephen, you were on the podcast before. We were discussing security, quantum computers, and many technical stuff. And the second Stephen is new, a professor of English literature. And today we are going to discuss different issues of AI in different contexts. So maybe to start, I actually changed the ideas we were planning to discuss a little bit and wanted to go to philosophy right away, if you don't mind, because I think it's the most interesting aspect and it's not that often discussed, right? So my question to you is, since we know that AI is going to have tremendous impact on society, it will be used everywhere. It will be used both in like technical fields, but it also will be used extensively in education, in decision making. What do you think, or how do you see the alignment of values with the of AI and of the humanity happening, given that we have this prevalent idea of relativism in the world right now? So how can we do that, right? If AI was invented in, I don't know, Middle Ages, that would be easy. Every culture would create their own AI. It would be like, you know, the Judeo-Christian Europe, it would be like a Confucianism China, and that would be the AIs. But given that we live in multicultural society with diverse system of values, how can we create AIs that are both respectful and at the same time aligned with human values?
The biggest issue when it comes to generative AI is just how you make that large language model, right? What data are you feeding it? We can see clearly that when you feed it the internet, you get strange answers because it's not based on any fact. It's just generating its comments based on a predictive analysis of what's come forward before in the sentence and what the context that you're working in is. If you were going to create something that was more of a moral philosopher, I suppose you would need to feed it a lot of moral philosophy books in the area that you're interested in order for it to not stray. And then a lot of additional data, of course, as a background for it to search through. And it works really well as a library retrieval tool. But having the context around what you're doing and how you build that model out, it's going to be very dependent on what you feed it to start with. And that's an expensive process.
Yeah.
Books.
So you are arguing kind of that the source of the data would be the most important, but do you think that there should be the alignment? Because we have like three choices, right? Kind of. We have a choice of having AI trained to be aligned with specific system of values, which we do usually in the last stage, right? We do it through the reinforced learning with human feedback. Then the second option is to individualize it per preference of user, right? So you're a Buddhist, you want it to be a Buddhist AI, right? Like it aligns with your beliefs and system of values. And the third option is to be value agnostic, right? To present all point of views as objectively as possible and not take any sides in any case.
I suppose it depends on what you want to use it for. If I want to use it as a general work aid around how I'm going to make a menu for the evening for the week, I probably don't need any of that.
I don't know. Maybe you need, because whatever, like a pork in some cultures, you know, it should be
easy enough to do it. The instruction on kosher or on, I don't want anything with pork or any other things that are prohibited by particular religious or philosophical beliefs. You know, I don't want to have anything with meat. Yeah, you can get at those instructions currently and it can come up with interesting things. I think having a lot more per use type of AI capability is really where we need to go. Things that are a lot more structured and focused on a particular task or set of tasks in order to, one, develop it faster, right? Putting that large language model together around building race cars or running race cars and running racetracks, Formula One stuff. And that would be a lot smaller, easier, less expensive to build and less expensive to run than using, ChatGPT all the time.
Mm-hmm. So you believe that the models will be smaller over time. By the way, Stephen, feel free to fill in whenever you.
No. But did I hear you say you're a vegetarian also in then you were okay. I was gonna say we have yet another thing in common. But I almost see technology, and because you mentioned philosophy and morality, and I almost see them as kind of on parallel tracks where they almost I don't want to say they don't have anything to do with each other, but that I think there's this idea with AI that as technology is getting better, that there's progress, and I think we use that term in two very, very different ways, but we kind of mix them. Like, oh, we're progressing, like technology is getting better. Are we as people progressing, like morally? Like, that's debatable. Dubious for me. So I see there's a great historian of religion. His name is Mircea Eliade. Do you know that name?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so he talks about certain religions having certain ideas of time. That Judeo-Christian religions have this very linear idea of time. That sort of this time's going to proceed linearly, then the Messiah is going to come, and history is going to kind of end at a certain point. Whereas Eastern faiths sort of have a cyclical view of like that things are going to kind of go in a circle. These are faiths that tend to see things like reincarnation, and I think AI proponents, people who really, really believe in it almost in a religious sense, kind of see that like we're going to arrive at some sort of version of humanity that's like the pinnacle. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, this is a new version of the same problems that we've been having for thousands of years. Because I mean, I'm interested in literature, and like one of the things that makes literature great is you could read somebody from 500 years ago and they're talking about the same human problems that we still deal with now. There's just different set designs and different costumes people are wearing, but it's the same stuff going on. So I don't know that AI is going to make us more technologically advanced and all this other, but I don't know that it's going to make us better I don't know that I think it's a separate thing. I almost think they're separate tracks.
Interesting. So I disagree.
Yeah.
So you believe in the constant nature, constant human nature, which is unchanging. Yes.
Yeah.
There is even in Christian philosophy, because that's like a standard Christian belief.
Yeah.
Even in Christian philosophy, there is some thinkers like Teilhard de Chardin,
sure,
who believe in progression of the humanity from alpha to omega, right? To like increase. And if I look at history, I agree. Like if you read Cicero, it sounds so contemporary, right? But I think it's only the capability of evil doesn't change. Sure. So what we see, the genocides we see which humans are performing even now, right? This is happening right now. People are capable of it. But if you look at the general life of a person, it's uncomparable. Even 100 years ago, it's like the murder rate is uncomparably lower. The quality of life is lower. The respect for women is uncomparable. So it looks like there is some progress, even if the nature of human doesn't change. But the civilization is like tempering down the worst excesses.
Maybe I'll grant, yeah,
to a certain degree.
Do you think? Maybe I'll grant that. I mean, do you think AI will make that better or worse?
What I worry about AI is that in academia, you can have this relativist approach and have like no system of value is better than other system.
Yeah. Right.
Because it doesn't affect anything. It affects your paper. And not worse, it affects your students.
Right.
But it doesn't really affect reality. But imagine that the AI is trained this way. Mm-hmm. So AI is trained according to the current system of beliefs, which is that there is no better and worse, there is that everything is relative. Then it can come to any kind of conclusion if it takes it seriously, because it's a logical inference method.
Sure.
We are capable of keeping at the same time the belief in human rights, for example, and relativity, which is contradictory. Sure. Either there are human rights or there is relativity. There is no possibility for both, right?
Agree.
Because human rights is an absolute. Every human has a inherent dignity and the right to live, or something like this. Right. That's an absolute statement, right? But machines have trouble with this kind of logical fallacies, right? So I wonder if this is going to be. I think it's already a problem. If you talk to different AIs which were differently biased by this reinforcement learning with human feedback, they are very different in how they communicate with you. So maybe it's yours, Stephen, idea. I will call you Stephen. Stephen, yeah. Maybe this idea of specialized AI is a solution, right? Instead of like having, because I imagine that there is like one big, almost godlike, for the level of, godlike Olymp of God, not God, but Olymp God, so very powerful AI which rules the world, right? That would be a problem. It has a specific system of values which happen not to align with a system of values you are holding, right? But maybe if we don't go to this utopian view, maybe if it's like a little AI per function. But do you think it will stay like this? Like, how can super intelligence, if it's created, stay at specialization?
Well, I don't see that it's an either or, right? I certainly don't need a super dominating AI to drive the car, right? Or to run the security system in my house. Those are pretty simple systems compared to running the entire world or embracing a philosophy. I think in order to get to that point, there would be a need for the AI to have an ability to understand what it's being asked and what it's answering, and really to have some level of consciousness to be able to consider what might be good or bad, or even consider new things, right? Like, I can ask an AI to sort through a whole bunch of different alloys to look for me superconductor, but I got to get a place to start. And it's not going to just sit there and suddenly go, hey, Stephen, I've discovered a new alloy. You should check it out. No, I've got to ask it to do it first, right? So there's no curiosity, there's no understanding. And before you can have an AI running everything, you need to have that understanding. What am I actually saying? What am I actually hearing? What am I listening to?
Well, I think he brought up a good point, which is that, because I'm like you, I have some concerns about AI, but really my deepest concern is just the general aspect of it. Like, I don't have a problem with like an AI doing something that's very like task specific, like you just described there. But like when I hear some of the CEOs of some of these large language model companies that they're trying to work toward artificial general intelligence, I'm like, I hear conflicted things about large language models might be a dead end, and you guys are much better equipped to answer that. But I'm like, is artificial general intelligence even a desirable? Why do we want to have something that can run everything and do everything? And is that a desirable outcome, even if we could do it? I don't know that it is a good. Why would we want that?
Well, as humans, we might not want it, but individual corporations might want it. And coming back to your example of security, so that would be a good example, because you're right. For car driving, I'm not sure if we need like a philosophical car driver, right? Like who knows Kierkegaard, but maybe not. But for security, I'm not sure, because if you want to be better than any human, you would need to be. Wouldn't you need to have capabilities better than human in every possible creative aspect, so that you can defend, you can understand, for example, all aspects of I don't know, you use that term when you use a human as an entry to the system, the easiest way, like mislead someone to take a memory stick and put it into the computer when it's completely impossible to go to the firewall, right? So I'm not sure. I think that in some cases, like security, having a super intelligence is basically going to be an arm race of super intelligence between countries or companies.
Sure. And maybe I should clarify a little bit. When I said security, I was thinking in terms of like a home security system, like protecting my house, letting my friends in when they show up early and I'm still at work, whatever, right?
Right.
That's more where my brain was going on that when it comes to like cybersecurity or network security type of things. Yeah, you're definitely going to need something more sophisticated. And it's not necessarily going to be very creative. The creative part's still coming from the human beings. It's being used today to create attacks rapidly, to turn around and take advantage of a vulnerability that's been published that has a patch for it, to be able to quickly put together some code and take advantage of that situation before people can get their machines patched. That's absolutely happening. And being able to do those correlations at superhuman speed is necessary moving forward to counteract that, because I think there was Scattered Spider was recently converting from hacking into a system to being able to take things over in under 5 minutes. right? 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I not even got the alert yet, right?
Yeah.
I was running off to get a cup of coffee or something, and that's all happened in that period of time. So yeah, you're going to need something that can react at those levels. But I think that just underscores the need for different types of AI capability for different types of systems.
I'm thinking even in a situations like, imagine like a complex attack, like not that the system is hacked in 5 minutes, but that you have a system which is first able to create a very beautiful girl who calls one of the lonely employees, which it figured out by looking at the Facebook, and it tells him that she's in the need of absolutely, she needs that access because otherwise she will, I don't know, commit suicide or something. And then he goes for it, right? So this is the entry. Then the moment he and opens this email with this attachment, then the attack happens. And this can be very, very complex. It can be a fake call from FBI saying that they need access to this system. Anything like this, which requires very general intelligence. You need to be able to understand human emotions, simulate them, understand how to convince somebody, maybe threaten them, maybe blackmail them, maybe convince them, right? It's basically like being a human trying to do that, except that the human would use different tools to achieve that. I can totally imagine hackers in the future having a tool, agentic AI, which would do all of that by themselves. And it will be run by a kid in a basement who, I don't know, got a bad grade in school and is now taking revenge or something.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you basically described espionage for the last several thousand years, right? We find somebody, we find a weakness, we send an agent to specifically exploit that particular weakness.
except that all of it is not done by human.
Right. And now you just sped it up, but you're still needing human to identify the mark and help build that creature out that you're creating, this false entity that's going to hack the human.
Maybe you need to just build the technology, but I don't think you need to tell it what to hack. You can give it an agency. It's just,
You could, but how's it going to discover you as an individual and attempt to break into a corporation? So you need a target to point at, right?
It could select its own
on the world.
Could select its own targets by itself completely, like scanning internet. I don't know. Like you give it the basically the reward function is hack as many as possible, right? And then the reward function, which is in terminology of machine learning, is what in reinforcement learning gets you toward the target as quickly as possible. It's like optimization toward the target, right? So the reward function is hack.
You could do that.
Yeah,
it's either going to be slow or really expensive on electricity.
That's true. That's all true. I'm just thinking, like science fiction, but not that far in the future.
Well, there's this types of thing currently. It's just there's human in the loop helping it along the point at where it needs to go.
Yeah, the human slows it down. So that's the human is slower.
But we were talking about morality before, and if people are merging with so I guess to come back to that point you asked earlier about morality, like if we are merging with this technology, is it going to make people like it? And so what I was saying earlier is maybe it was an overstatement to say that these things don't have the moral progress and technological progress don't have anything to do with each other. Maybe a slight overstatement, but do we think that merging with this technology that at least seems to be motivated by, based on the conversation we've been having, which is that people are slow, inconvenient, and get in the way, is my merging with that going to make me care more about my neighbor and care more about people and care more about slowing down and actually getting to know people? Or is it going to have me sort of treating and thinking about people in more of a, I don't know, not disposable way, but in more of kind of a cavalier way? I don't know. I don't know that merging with that kind of technology is it a good thing? I don't know.
I think you've described basically a lot of science fiction over the last century at least, struggling with just that very thought. Some of those outcomes are R2-D2 and C-3PO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of those outcomes are like the black hole with Maximilian and Vincent, right?
Mm-hmm.
One evil robot, one good robot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got other things that are just somewhere in between. And then there's stuff like Neuromancer, which is getting ready to actually come out with a television version of that, which I'm excited to see.
Oh, really? I cannot wait. I didn't know that.
Soon it's releasing.
That was on my I had that on my syllabus, and then I cut it at the last minute and replaced something else. But that was initially going to be one of my lit assignments. But
So, that's a fabulous book because a lot of the things in there are happening to us now.
Yeah.
Is it the right thing to do? Is it the wrong thing to do?
But I think to coming back to the why we're mixing these two topics, because I think it's very related. Like if since AI requires a lot of resources to train, it's really important who is training it, like and according aligning with which system of values. Because if every hacker in the basement can train their own super intelligent AI, then we can do nothing about it. We can only fight it on a level of like it will be a race. But if indeed there will be not enough resources, literally not enough electricity and GPUs to train the top AIs, then those who are training these top AIs will determine the values these AIs are aligned with. And since we don't have the absolute system of values, what are we aligning with?
that's
Right? Like that's like you
point.
need to align with something and you don't know what you're aligning with. People that disagree on basic stuff. Right?
Well, I mean, just from seeing sort of, I think you're right. I wonder if that like decentralized version of AI, where anybody can, like you were saying, anybody can program it from their basement, versus only a couple of wealthy corporations can do it. I don't know which is a worse scenario.
Yeah.
But just from some of the tech people, some of the CEOs I've seen talking on television, it seemed I don't, maybe I don't need to name any, but it seems. The impression I've gotten from seeing them speak is humanity is a problem to be solved. It is a stepping stone on the way to something better, and that worries me because I'm just like that troubles me a little bit.
Yeah, it is specifically the founder of Google who said that.
Yeah,
that humans are just step towards transhumans.
Yeah, I mean it's not a far leap then to start thinking about like Matrix. We're all in batteries we're all batteries that are feeding these machines. So I just that troubles me when I hear humanity is this thing we have to overcome and transcend. I'm a little. The transhumanist stuff I think was interesting to me in like my 20s, but I've kind of gotten a little leery of it in my older years. But
so you think we'll not change as a species with AI over time?
I think we probably will. I'm not sure that change will be good. I don't think it's a positive one. I think we're like you said. I think some of the absolute values and some of that stuff, I see that going away. I don't see that. Though I'm encouraged. Interesting, like we were talking a little earlier. I'm encouraged by. I've read in a couple different places that younger people are becoming more interested in sort of spiritual practices and which all sort of have an absolute value to them. And some of them are, some of these young people are simultaneously doing things like, fasting from social media, staying off phones and stuff. And I think those two things are related. I think having a spiritual practice and being and living and existing in the cloud are kind of antithetical. I think to have a spiritual practice, to have a that kind of communal life requires embodiedness, sharing space with people, and so I think maybe some of this life in the cloud will sort of reveal itself to not have a core of absolute values with it, and people will kind of recognize it for what it is. But it seems like the people who are pulling all the strings don't have those absolute values that I'm seeing with some young people.
I think they have good intentions. Like they are trying to create a utopia. The problem is that we had some attempts to create utopia, and they all had good intentions initially.
Right. No one thinks
People dead later.
Right.
Some people still think these utopias are possible, right? So it's because it's against human nature. That's the problem.
Right.
This abundance, word of abundance, does not work with human nature.
Right.
So it's interesting, like what you're saying, but I also come to this very strange for me conclusion that will literally depend on what is really a human. So if human is really a simulation of a brain activity,
Right.
then we have no chance because we basically will be better.
Right.
The machines will be better. There has to be something beyond that. It could be a quantum element which is not in a Turing machine like Perenoro's beliefs, or it can be a religious belief of soul, but it has to be beyond the computation, because if it's not beyond the computation, then we're just step in the evolution from the biological computer to metal computer, which is faster and more reliable and breaks less
and doesn't die
and so on, right? So I don't see any other option, right? It will be dichotomic. It will be like basically a question of, does soul exist? If it does, then humanity survive. If it doesn't, we don't, because we are just step on the evolution.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, clearly it seems like we're going to be doing this, at least in the short term, that we yield agency to these systems, that we need some set of rules for them, like Cosmos robotics laws.
Yeah.
Right. We also need to have some sort of capability to counteract the fact that, an axe is a great tool. It's also a great murder weapon.
Sure.
Right. And AI is going to be the exact same way. It's a great tool. It's a great murder weapon. Right. Shouldn't be too hard to do that with the agentic system at all, because we've already shown that we can have physical interactions from a computer. But I think ultimately, when it comes down to it, the real question is what makes us different from everything else. And I think it's the fact that we want to know. P.S. why? We look at the scientific community. How many times has it been declared we know everything there is about physics? Oh, wait, look at that.
Yeah.
It can get smaller.
Yeah.
It can get weirder. Why does the universe exist?
Right.
So those philosophical questions, whether they come from a place of religion or a place from science, I think is what's going to drive and keep us around using these tools to help us do it better and faster. After all, you're now capable of doing so much more in an afternoon than we used to be able to do in a month. Just ask any accountant from the 60s about how nice it is to do accounting now versus rooms full of people with paper ledgers trying to add everything. Right? We can pull that information almost instantly now.
Do we? This is a thought I had, and I've thought this before, and I'm really curious what both of you think about. I've thought a little bit about like the kind of the values. There's Heidegger's a philosopher that I've read, has a lot of interesting things to say about technology, and one of the things he says he has an essay called "The Question Concerning Technology." I don't know if you've heard of it, but in there he basically says that technology isn't neutral. It's sort of, we have certain values that then get like instantiated into the technology, and then the technology changes us, and it's this sort of feedback loop. So the thought I had was, are the values that brought the internet into being the same values that undergird AI? And I'm not sure that they are. So one of the thoughts I had was, okay, when you create the printing press, you are taking written information out of the hands of the privileged few who can read and sort of disseminating it to everybody. And the internet is speeding that process up. It's dephysicalizing that. It's turning it into ones and zeros and spreading it so that everybody has access to it. Though as a teacher, I'm like, okay, you still, in the early days of the internet, you'd still download pages. You'd still have to eventually download it to your head. The value that undergirds the printing press and the internet seems similar to me. It seems like there's a bigger leap between those two and AI. AI seems like it wants to take the human processing out of the picture altogether. So I sometimes hear, like when I'm in faculty meetings and stuff, and people are saying, oh, this is just like the internet. We have to use it in the classroom just like we all use the internet in the classroom now. I'm always like, I think it's a little different than the internet, though. What do you two think of that?
I would agree. And it's a lot like using any other tool. Depending on how you use it, it's going to do good or bad for you personally. Right? If I start using a tool to do all my physical labor for me, I atrophy. And now I'm having a hard time moving around. So we found that. We found the sedentary lifestyle is not good, and we had to turn around and done something about it. I think some of our challenges are that technology is moving faster than we can assimilate it ourselves. But I think, if you take a look at using an AI research assistant to go out and hit all the research sites out there to find stuff relevant to you, pulling those summaries, pulling its summary on why it's relevant to what you're looking for, You then have the information to then read through all of that and start putting that into your brain and understanding it so you can create that new content that you're working on, whatever your thesis is. If you just let it do all the work for you,
Right.
I think hearkening back to the MIT paper you referenced that just came out, you haven't learned anything. You have regurgitated something, or really the AI has regurgitated something, and all you did was tell it what you wanted to regurgitate.
Right.
You've learned nothing, and maybe it will learn something.
Right. And so I wonder if because in the scenario you're just describing is someone who's already kind of developed critical thinking skills who can then takes things that the computer's culled together and then assimilate it themselves. A young person who's still trying to learn how to do critical thinking is probably just going to say, well, let me just have it, since it's already gathering the information for me, let me just click a button and have it do all the other stuff for me too. Whereas the person who has some of that exercised brain muscle will still want to use it, whereas the person who's just developing it might see the shortcut, and which is why I worry when I'm teaching freshmen. I'm like,
it's like when I was in junior high school, you can't use a calculator, but why? It's so much easier. It's so much faster than me.
Right.
Because then you don't learn math.
Right.
You don't learn how to add. You can't make change.
Right.
You can't do simple things.
How would you argue for people to ever not use a calculator when AI is capable of doing anything? Because without calculator, you have an argument. You say, like, what if there was no calculator? You can say, you first have to understand, otherwise you will not be able to perform the work.
Right.
This argument is gone.
No.
AI can do anything. Imagine AI can do anything. It's an artificial general intelligence. So can do anything. You're not needed to actually understand. Why would you understand?
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who would be more than happy to do that, sit around and eat bonbons all day or watch TV, right?
The Wall-E scenario, right, in the movie.
But then there's those people who have questions why. And if you let the computer do all the work for you, you're not going to ask the right whys. And if you're not asking the right whys, you're not going to be able to think about things. And you're not going to be able to take disparate pieces of information and put it together in new, fundamentally different ways.
But that is an entirely internal motivation.
Right.
Nothing external can motivate you anymore, right? Because you have a choice between pressing the button and getting $100 for your work, because this is your AI that does the work, or spending time on understanding it and getting maybe the same $100, right? So it has to be internal. Right now we have the external motivation. You have to work. You have to do that. Otherwise you will not be an engineer, right? Or you'll not be whatever. So,
and this is I think kind of the fallacy might be too harsh, but I'll say it for now. Sort of the fallacy in the way someone like Sam Altman thinks, which is that we're going to create AI, and all these human values that we still have of work, working and wanting to come ask why, are just going to stay fixed. And the generations coming up, they might have issues because they're not going to develop something. They're not going to have any of this curiosity because they've always grown up with AI. But the technology itself changes us. So those human values that we think are just going to stay, like, oh, AI, I'm still going to want to work it over in my head. After a generation, is that still going to be around when I can just press the button? I don't know that it's going to stay around. I think we're going to create the technology. The technology is going to change us, and then it's a loop. Yeah. So I don't know, like, do those skills that only come from not having the ability, it's like I didn't have the ability in the beginning, I didn't have the ability to just take something off the internet and download it into my head. I had no choice, so I developed that skill. In the future, when I don't have to, am I still going to want to do that?
I think it would.
I would, but somebody 500 years from now might not.
It will be a small, tiny group, like maybe 1% of society,
right?
Because we did experience it. We forget we experienced it. The concept of work, like the idea of work being a value, is new. You can argue in different cultures, but in our culture, this is kind of a Protestant idea, right?
Right. Sure.
There was an aristocracy who didn't work, and there was the farmers, the servants. I forgot the term. People who were under them, who had to work. They maybe didn't want to either because it was breaking work. So that was, nobody really wanted to work, but there was still Newton who actually wanted to work. He didn't need to, but he had to. So he did do it, right? So there will be like a small group of people who pursue knowledge, work, art, for example, art creation.
Sure.
Right? But I don't know if it will be such a small minority, and
And it seems like it's diminishing, and it seems like it would be a shrinking. It would seem like that number would be shrinking over time to me. Maybe it might be a constant small, but you're right, it would be a small number, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and it will be very difficult to find a meaning in it, because at least if you're an artist, you might believe you become famous, you become rich, you will be appreciated. I don't know if that would still hold, right? So
some people still want to express themselves regardless.
yeah, that's but some, yeah.
And that's what a lot of artists are doing out there. They're motivated by trying to express what they're feeling or see, want to share with others.
Yeah, but some argue that artists don't exist without an audience. It's very hard. It's very rare that artist wants to be like completely just by themselves.
Yeah, right. Yeah, writers say that all the time. Like, I just write for myself. I'm like, no, you don't. You're trying to communicate something to someone who's going to read it. Like, that's
so it's very interesting, and it also relates to values, right? Like, because how do we associate? How do we find the value or meaning? But value and meaning is very similar concept, right? How do we find that something is at all valuable to spend time on? When the AI is better in everything, can do everything, how do we justify it?
I think, yeah. You have any thought? Yeah,
I was just thinking that maybe, we're worrying about something we shouldn't worry about or don't need to worry about so much. And that throughout history, we've had people who always wanted to understand and go further. They've explored the world. They've created the tools to go further and farther. We've gone to the moon. Right? We put people in orbit because we want to know, we want to go, we want to see, we're planning on putting a manned base on the moon. We want to go to Mars. We want to leave the solar system. There's a universe out there to explore, things to see. So that is a driving force for a percentage of the people, not everybody, Everybody wasn't lined up to get on the ships with Columbus to go find a way around the flat planet to the other side of the round world that Greeks knew about. So what do? You don't take everyone with you.
Yeah, I think in some ways, the utopian abundance that a lot of the tech CEOs are thinking about is itself, which is why we were saying earlier, like the utopia always kind of devolves into a dystopia because it just they haven't thought it through enough. But I think even if the utopian, everybody has everything they need, even if that works out, that in my mind is itself dystopian. Because like when you go to sometimes if you'll go to a zoo, you'll see an animal that's taken out of the wild and it has literally everything it needs provided for it. Its life expectancy goes down. It's neurotic. It paces back and forth because it's losing its mind. It providing it everything it physically needs is actually what's killing it. What it actually needs is it needs risk. It needs to go out and like risk getting killed by something and then go after something. That aspect of life is what it needs. And so by trying to solve, it's almost like we're trying to solve for that problem when really it's not a problem. It's necessary for this thing to thrive. And so I sometimes hear them talking about, we'll have everything provided for us. We won't have to work. Someone like Arthur C. Clarke would say the unemployment rate's going to be 100% because no one's going to have to. Everyone's going to be just at home and everything's going to be working for them. That in and of itself is dystopian to me.
Yeah, science fiction is full of stories what happens when there is no need to work, and it always dissolves into dystopia.
Yeah.
And we even have this universe 28, 23. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
There's an experiment from I hope 1970s or 80s, where there was a multi-year experiments with mice put into different universes. So they're isolated places where mice would live. In one of them, they were starved. In the other one, they had a certain amount of food. In the third one, they had everything they wanted. The one which always dies off, regardless of what you do, is the abandoned one. Always. What happens is that the male, I think it was rats, maybe not mice. No, it was mice actually. So the male mice stop being interested in reproducing. Everybody dies off. There's tons of violence. Everybody fights for fun because they have nothing to do. And then the offsprings are either not produced or killed, and universe always dies.
That's not surprising.
So yeah. So I think that there is a risk of it, but we're not mice. We have this desire, additional desire, like you said. I think this is actually the solution, that there will be always maybe 10%, maybe 20%, maybe 5%, but there will be a group of people who are interested in exploring, risking, going to Mars, building colony, whatever it is, something crazy which will kill most of them, and but it still will be this desire of exploration.
Do you think, Stephen, do you think that small group of people that we've been talking about, do you think that group will be, how plugged into the internet and plugged into technology do you think they'll be? Do you think they'll be completely like using all the most advanced technology, or will that small group that's sort of curious to think on their own, will they be not Luddites that break away, but will they be sort of somewhat removed from the tech that would be prevailing at the time?
I think it'd be like the example I was just giving around doing the research, right?
Mhm.
They'll be using the tools. They'll be using the tools appropriately and as needed to do the things they want to do, whether that's manipulating something through VR, testing scenarios out, building new designs through that kind of medium, or helping with scientific experiments. After all, if you look at the science experiments we do now, it takes millions of dollars sometimes and whole teams in order to do something interesting. Whereas, Newton was able to do it, simply with mechanical objects nearby.
Right.
So you're going to see that need for these tools that we've been developing in order to push our knowledge further and further. But you're still going to have plenty of people who are just going to dive into VR and stay there all the time.
And never unplugged, right?
Right. So I think you'll see a combination of those things going forward, but those scientists will be using them appropriately like a researcher would versus, just using it to do all their work for them when they're a sixth grader trying to get home with.
Yeah, but the problem with this view is that imagine that AI is way smarter than the smartest person, right? So you ask it to work with you on, let's say, new physics, like physics of a black hole, what happens in the singularity. And the AI answers like, I know what happens in singularity. I could even show you formulas, but you have zero chance to understand it ever. I will never be able to teach it to you on this level because you're too stupid as a species, right? So in that, I think this is inevitable over time because there's no upper limit on intelligence of AI, except that there is a new paper, by the way, regarding the energy required to improve. That's our hope, that the energy goes exponential. So might not be enough energy. But other than that, there is no limit technically on this improvement. So I just wonder, you would need to be self-motivated to be like a child almost. Like, that your father, the AI, knows everything, but you still build your little Lego thingy and you enjoy it, even though this level of your understanding will never reach even the percent of that super intelligence. So this will be a problem of motivation, right? Like why you do that, like just for yourself, for your understanding of the world.
But I was wrestling with what, how, given all the rampant cheating that's going on in universities, and I'm sure you're seeing maybe some of it, but probably less in your department. But how am I, like, because I really want my students to develop critical thinking skills. I really want them, they're freshmen, a lot of them. I want them to be able to look at sources and like make connections themselves, not just put things into, I was playing with Google Notebook over the summer and seeing it make all these connections for you. I'm like, I want my students to be able to do this on their own. So just from past experience, I've seen that they don't have that self-discipline themselves. A lot of them don't, to just not look at it. They're just there and it's like blinking right at them. So, I've tried to make it as difficult for them to use it and be as analog as I can with doing stuff in class, because that self-motivation from a generation that has grown up with this from the very beginning. They haven't grown up with AI from the very beginning, but like my kids are going to have grown up with it from the very beginning. That self-discipline is going to be harder and harder to come by. So I feel like there have to be constraints imposed by people, maybe older people, but people who see the value in doing some of that thinking and work themselves.
So you think you will have generally going toward the educational applications, you think the MIT paper claiming that people are getting stupider, to get a brain rot, to speak the Gen Z language, from using AI is a real present current danger, and you see it in classes.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a podcast last month and I was telling about universities, and I was saying that like what that what that MIT study looked at. Did you have a chance to look at it, Stephen, the MIT study?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, so the part about where the students are, what the AI is doing really well for them, which is like simplifying the material, simplifying how it's presented, but it's also eliminating totally the need for them to create outlines, to do all the stuff that really helps that information transfer to long-term memory. That part of it, it's not just that it's easy to understand and easily presented, it's that I'm doing something with it. I'm mixing that information with myself so that it sticks with me. That part is kind of what the AI is eliminating, and that's the part that I want my students doing. I don't just want them clicking a couple buttons and having it draw up an outline for them. I want them to actually have a hard time with it, come to me to talk about it, struggle over it. The struggle is the thing. I want them to have that struggle. I don't want them to struggle to the point where they're depressed and disappointed, but the struggle is how you build the muscle, right? You're breaking down the muscle and then building it up. So that part of the study really worried me, but I was also unsurprised by what it said in the study, that people who used their brain to write the paper and then used the AI to go back and help them edit it and fix it up saw a boost in cognitive performance. I'm like, that makes sense to me, because you're using it as the adjunct tool that it should be, and you're not using it as a replacement for thinking.
Yeah, I think this is actually the big problem, that there is like, in academia, there are people who either think the AI is absolute disaster and never use it, this is the end of the world, or people who are like, use it everywhere, all the time, in every context.
Yeah.
But what we need is some form of, I don't want to say regulation, but some form of maybe an application, AI application that is targeted in such a way, or tailored in such a way,
Right.
that it actually boosts the critical thinking. So instead of giving you, for example, a full answer, it gives you, directs you toward the answer. And another thing we need is basically certification, like the Adobe, how is it called? I forgot. Adobe certification of generative content, which they're introducing. The content initiative, Adobe Content Certification Initiative, I think. I had an entire palette, I forgot the term. So basically the idea is that anything which would be generated would be easily verifiable as generated, right? And the ways it can be done by embedding stenographically kind of things in the text or image. It can be done. So it would be just a question of tools. The teacher, gets an essay and can easily verify, not like ChatGPT-0, which doesn't work, right?
Right.
But it easily verify the source, whether it was generated, whether not. Of course, students would find ways around it. There would be tools to hack it, as they always were, where
Right.
like you could always ask your friend and pay them to write your essay, things like that. But it would be less common. Right now, it's like everybody's doing it all the time.
Sure,
right?
sure.
So I don't know. I think it's the study doesn't worry me that much as people are worried, because I think it's a kind of overblown, because it's very early in technology. It's like the patterns of use. It's like this early studies about violent games, which show that that everybody will be shooting each other because they shot each other in common Call of Duty. It's like not happening, right? So,
well, yeah, and people were using the MIT study to then talk about AI in general, which I think it was saying specifically that, I forget which large language models it was using in the study, but it was like they were not talking about using some sort of tailored AI like you were just describing. They were not talking about that. They were talking about, hey, this thing that I could just talk to and get answers. That's what they were using in the study. So yeah, presumably if there were teaching tools that actually did what you were describing, I'd be open to them. I mean, someone like Rebecca Winthrop, she's someone at the Brookings Institute. She says like we could use these tools in the classroom and get parent input and feedback. She's like, that's just not happening. They're just kind of going off on their own and developing these things and saying, hey, here's a free student subscription, try it out. And that's not really with the classroom and the student in mind. It's just like, hey, we want you using this thing.
I think for stepping over a fundamental piece of the equation here, and that's the student had to understand the instructions to start with in order to ask the AI to create the paper for them, right? So there's a certain level of knowledge that had to already been established before they could even use the AI to do it. And I think that's where we have a significant opportunity to take the things that we've learned from the pandemic and the things we're learning with the AI usage to completely change the way we educate people. Right now, we were using a really old system of a whole bunch of people in a room all learning at the same speed, and we all know that people don't learn at the same speed, right? Now we have an opportunity, I think, to be able to use AI tools and distance learning as well as in-person learning to have a customized learning experience for every student, where the AI can guide them through the exercises necessary to learn that information, and the professor or teacher is still there, able to help kind of corral things, keep things moving along, and keep things at a social level where people can then still get that socialization happening.
I think that's an important piece, because if the motivation, if the goal is, hey, we want them to learn the content, I'm sure there will be lots of good AI tools that are developed, like you said. I worry I'm blanking on the term now, but John Dewey, the philosopher, used the term. I think it's collateral learning. It's all the other things so like I'm learning about Shakespeare, but there's all this other collateral things that I'm learning in the process. Like if my teacher's having me act it out in class, I'm learning how to interact with my classmates. I'm learning how to do other stuff. So as long as that component isn't getting lost, because I've seen have you seen some of these alpha schools that have opened up in places like Texas and Florida, where it's kids at laptops all day, and then there's one facilitator kind of going around, and I wonder if some of the like social interaction and some of the other collateral learning that could be happening in a like group work or whatever that normally happens in a classroom may be getting lost because we're just so focused on having them pass the tests and get the content down. But if that stuff's taken into account, then I'm open to what you're describing.
And does that then change the way we grade things, the way we evaluate things? And
Yeah.
Great. Like, what's our criteria for passing elementary school, high school, right at that point? Because you can customize that out completely to anybody at any time, right? With minimal effort.
Well, and you know what it will lead to? A total non-equity of learning outcomes. Because there will be a kid in a math class who will be on a level, university level, or maybe, okay, that would be exaggeration, but grade 10 in grade 3, and another kid will be on grade 3 in grade 3, right? Because it will be individualized. Right now, the super smart kid in a class is bored to death learning 2 + 2 when he already is interested in something advanced, and we just ignore it, right? Unless there's some enrichment. But it will lead to tremendous differences in outcomes among people. It will also improve everybody, right? Because thanks to individual learning, these kids who struggle will be better supported. So they will get farther, right? They will get higher. So that everybody will be higher, but some people will be like super fast. They will be, able to do like 3 degrees at the same time and so on. So it will be interesting results.
Sure. Yeah.
It will be very unequal, and yet everybody's elevated.
Yeah. You could end up with a Dewey Hauser, but you feel like they end up with a little bit more of, here are the things that you really excel at, and here are the things that you don't do well at all. We're going to work more on these things to bring them up to, say, a socially acceptable level, whatever that might be, right? That's a 6th grade level, a 10th grade level, whatever. It doesn't need to be a college graduate. Meanwhile, this stuff over here that you're working on will cut down on that, but you're still going to get like a double PhD in that area because you're really good at it.
Or the opposite. So you know how Singaporean educational system works? It's a dictatorship, right? Singapore was created as a dictatorship. And the vision of the dictator, I forgot his name, was very interesting. What he does, he's dead, but what he introduced was that every kid from, I think at the age of 7, very early, somebody can check on me on that, but very early, is tested on music abilities, sport abilities, math abilities. And the whole education system is set to excel that person on their abilities. So they, like, if the kid is smart in math, they will give him like tons of additional lessons. If he has talent in music, he will be given piano classes from the age 7 included in the education, right? So basically like creating super educated, super smart people, cultivating the talents. What you're talking about is interesting because you should have the other skills too, right? If you're just good in math and kind of like communicate how you are going to ever go to a date or something, right? Typical program for math.
Well, I think it also sets up a challenge of, if I mean, we're graduating kids into a world, like you were saying earlier, Stephen, that like things are changing so quickly that even adapting to them is impossible. So if we hyper specialize kids in one thing, and then they end up in the work world, and that thing two years later is completely eliminated as a profession, like their ability to pivot now is completely eliminated. If they have no holistic anything, they don't know anything about literature, they don't know anything about anything else. They were putting all their eggs in one basket, and then that basket just got automated away. They're a much less durable person now because they don't have all that other stuff.
We still won't make those connections that we can make today because we do have general ed requirements, right?
Sure, yeah.
So you're able to take this little bit of thing that you learned in literature and this little bit of thing over in philosophy, and then you're applying it to something real in engineering.
Yeah, so I think I mean I think this is just to me an argument for why we need like liberal arts. I think the liberal arts should. I mean, I would be worried if they went away because
especially critical thinking.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it actually, like, I think it's even more that, like in the past when the aristocracy would go to university and they would study the canonical theology, philosophy, and so on, and not necessarily they would study geometry, right? But they wouldn't necessarily specialize in math. They had like general education. That's really the only thing which is valuable. They're being very generalist, to be adaptable. If there's any kind of specialization, you will not be able to compete with machines. You are right now, right? Like you are the best programmer, then you get the best job, but that will be gone. So any specialization is over. So.
Well, I mean, did you see that there was that article in the Times where there were a bunch of computer science grads who were disgruntled because they were sort of promised these $160K a year jobs, and they got out into the work world and they were realizing that AI was coding way better than them, and they were like, we spent 4 years learning how to do this, and now we have no one's giving us jobs. So I wonder if
I have that experience. I have a startup, and I will not hire entry level people because AI is better. But there is a problem with this approach because, so let's say I hire right now, okay? I hire senior engineer. It's definitely, AI is not on this level. It makes mistakes. It is much better than intern and a 2-year experienced programmer, but it's not on the level of senior engineer. So I hire the senior engineer, he's like say 40, and then they go to retirement. But there was no entry-level position, so these entry-level people never became senior engineers. So there is no, it basically disappears because you didn't give the opportunity, and you will not, because in capitalism, why would you? If you can replace it with a machine, it's against you are creating costs unnecessarily.
We've got to change the way we're doing that, right? I was reading about the same type of thing in the legal system, right? You get out of school, you pass the bar, and you spend a whole lot of time doing research for lawyers who are actually doing the lawyering. Well, you don't need those research assistants anymore. If you've got an appropriately trained AI with the appropriate information in it, you can just have it collect all the things up for you, and then you can start doing your work. You've also just cut a lot of billing hours. So maybe I charge more for the lawyer because I don't have all those folks that pay for anymore. But I'm also getting faster results out of it too, because I've just gotten rid of 3-4 weeks of research that these guys would have normally done, and I'm straight to work in a day. So what does that mean? Now you need more of a mentoring program, right? Something that's going to help develop those skills for the next generation to be able to come in and step up behind you.
Right.
But they're shipping a pile of junk work that's being done by hand, much like the accounting, right? We used to go through all ledger stuff, working ledgers before you moved up to making decisions and things. But now we kind of skip through that phase, and you'd have more of an apprenticeship program going.
So you basically will delay entrance to the workforce by another 5 years, or you mean that you will be already in the workforce? Because if it's in the workforce, who is paying? Who is paying the salary for an unnecessary intern or entry-level position person?
You're building up your future workforce though, right? So you have to take a little bit of benign self-interest there, right? If I'm going to run a company and I need people at a senior level to do things, I need to bring in apprentices to learn from them.
If you find me a CEO who thinks further than 5 years in the future, and he's not Chinese, because Chinese can think 100 years in the future, but in North America, a CEO would say like, I will get this apprentice and decrease our revenue by 20%, not revenue, the profit by 20% because I'm paying them, because in 5 years I will get a senior developer. So that it's even hard to get an internship for 3 months for people, right? It's very hard to.
It's going to take a change in how the market's going to behave about these things, right? How the philosophy of running a business becomes is you have more and more of the low-level stuff being done by artificial means. You need a way to get people to the senior level that you need in your operations, right? And that means apprenticeships. That's like how the whole medieval world worked, right? You had an apprenticeship. They basically didn't get paid much, if at all, right? You got a cot and 3 hots and 2 hots. And they worked their butt off learning the trade until they had mastered it enough to start doing it on their own.
Yeah.
And maybe if we have this much liquidity in the market, we can look at that kind of futuristic, we don't have to work. And so the needs of that intern are mostly taken care of, and maybe they're interning for free or nothing, or just a little, right?
Do you think is that where we think so in this world of plenty that like AI opens up, is universal basic income kind of like, is that sort of baked into it? Does that kind of come with it, do you think? Because I don't see.
I don't know what you're going to do with 8, 9, 10 billion people.
Right, because I saw the CEO of NVIDIA saying something like, "Oh, AI is not going to take your job. Like someone who uses AI is going to take your job." I'm like, yeah, but there's still going to be way more people who are not going to be like it's clearly more efficient than people, so you're not gonna have the same number of people working with AI as were before. It's gonna clearly displace people. So I just what do we do with them? It seems like
It's so hard to predict, right? Like
Yeah.
on one hand, technology never created long-term issues like that. It always created new jobs. So some people say like everybody will be able to have a company which brings millions of dollars because you will work with your AI. And you will basically run, and it happens. Like right now, there are some very smart people who can create unicorns with 3 employees because they are employing a lot of AI technology. So that's one option. Another option is that's exactly what will happen, that we will have to provide universal basic income to everybody. And as much as I'm anti-socialist coming from Poland, I think it will be the only option. If you have an 30% unemployment, then you cannot say like, oh, get your act together and get a job, because there is no job.
Right.
So there's nothing you can do, right? So the question is it going to be like universal basic income, or is it going to be universal high income? Right? That's the other concept.
Maybe it's somewhere in between. Maybe it's
Split the difference.
basic, but if you want more, you're free to go out and seek employment or do research or something where you get additional income to supplement what you're already receiving. The other question, I guess, really is what happens to the population of the planet? Do we start shrinking? Or do we advance our technology enough that we can have an exodus?
I think we'll have exodus in long term, people, because it will lead to psychological stagnation. There's a lot of science fiction about it, right? If there is nothing interesting to do, then you might be living in prosperity, but it's stagnation. And then the only option is an explosion of exodus, right? So
Sure. And now you're colonizing new planets and can't have all that infrastructure with you on day one. And so
yeah.
I found back the skills again. Right?
Well, yeah. So you're self-imposing constraints on yourself. You're like, hey, things are too good here. We have everything's provided here. Let's go to a planet that, like, if things went haywire, we'd be dead immediately. But if there's some risk there, there's some adventure there. So it's kind of like we were talking about before. We're the bored fat mice, and we want to go to the other side. So let's go to Mars or whatever. Right?
Yeah, there should be this experiment on mice should be extended to that the universe is sealed, but there is an exit for few who can fight through to the exit and get to the where. I wonder if it would happen, or all these mice would actually stay and die of boredom in it.
Maybe you just gave a bunch of grad students ideas.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I would be the guy who goes if I didn't have children, or maybe even if I did, I don't know, to go to explore and risk life for sure. So
in your conversation with you're talking with Michael Trainer, he was a really interesting guy. And any of your viewers or listeners who didn't listen to that podcast, I think it was a great one. But how do we think like ideas about art are going to change? Like when AI can spin out a novel, and I think about this a lot as a fiction writer and somebody who writes fiction. Are ideas about art going to change as AI evolves? Are people still going to value human produced stuff? Is it still going to be kind of like, is it going to be niche now where like there's still people who are into vinyl and people who are into, is it going to be something like that in the future?
Thinking a lot about that since you brought it up a few weeks ago. And I know it's like,
Maybe they will value it more because there will be fewer people doing. Everyone else will be using an AI agent to do what they want, which is great. They can express themselves.
Mhm.
But I think that, or at least now, I think people feel that music and literature and art have value because somebody put their emotions into it.
Yes.
Put their feelings, their values, their life experience into what they've done, and it's a creation from their hands. On the other hand, you've got people who will be able to do that can't do it now, or you'll have tools to be able to do the painting that you can't do, or transcribe the stuff because your fingers are broken and
Right.
you can't type, right? So being able to express those stories, so they're still you're just using a tool to help you put it onto a piece of canvas or put it into words on book.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think because I really liked, I think that's true. I think there's still I ultimately at the end of the day think people go to art because they want to interface with another person. They want to know there's another person on the other end, but there's a soul there, or there's another person on the other end of this. Especially when I'm reading a novel, I want to know that there's another person's whose brain I'm tapping into when I'm reading. But one of the things that I think Dr. Trainer brought up in that conversation with you was that, because you brought up the example of the computers have gotten better and better at chess.
Mhm.
They've progressed in chess where now, and if any person's playing a chess game, they're never going to beat a computer. But and Mike brought up that point that there isn't really that same kind of progression in art, where it's like we're still talking about universal human things that have not changed and really aren't going to change. And so is there ever what does it mean to say that this computer is better at writing a novel than a person is? That doesn't, I almost don't know what it means, because it's never held a baby, it's never fallen in love with anybody. So I almost don't think it'll go away, because I don't think machines will ever be better at being human than humans. I don't think.
what about imagination? I mean, think about science fiction, right?
So would the machines be better at imagining things?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a lot of technology we have now because somebody imagined it in the past, and what that science fiction, science reality became.
Sure.
In some cases, science reality happens, which causes other people to think of where that could take you, right?
Right. Isn't that story with the cell phone was designed because of it? Wasn't it like Star Trek or something? Communicator. Yeah, something. Right. The design for the cell phone turned out. I think that was still away from the chord.
The tablet is 1968 Stanislav Lem book, which describes exactly the technology. There will be a flat surface on which crystals are forming letters which you can read. It's like amazing.
You mentioned Lem in that conversation too, and he's on my syllabus. The exact story you mentioned in that conversation with Michael Trainer, the one about this, basically describing ChatGPT in 1970s, describing this thing that does poetry better than poets. But I still think there is going to be a premium on human created stuff, because we are messy and human in a way that a machine will never be able to understand. So
I'm not sure if we will be able to, like, this value, this like hierarchy of what is better and worse. I understand what you mean, because, for example, we love a naive art, right? And a naive art is like objectively less complex than, let's say, Leonardo da Vinci, but we still love it because we know it was painted by somebody, and we want to know about this person. So I didn't claim, I hope it didn't look like I claimed that AI will replace artists.
No.
Only mean that AI will make art almost impossible to commercialize. So basically, and it's already happening.
That's true.
If you're like not the most famous artist and you are writing a novel, now you have a infinite number of competitors who will write novels which will be similarly appreciated. If you are Dostoevsky, then you will still maybe forever, maybe for a while, be the most read, at least in history or something. But if for regular people, for not the top, it's going to be impossible to live like this. On the other hand, maybe you will have more time, right? Because you will be on this universal high income and you can write the novels, which you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. So I think there will be basically two worlds. There will be art created by AIs and art created by humans. Some people will choose humans, some people will choose AI. I love AI art. I have if you go to Sora.com they have this, short art. Some of this is when AI misunderstood the prompt. It seems, and it creates something absolutely amazing. So it is interesting. Like it's not always necessary that you're connecting with another person. It can be just the aesthetic impression.
If it's, I guess if it's...
but it is also very important to connect to another person, right? So it's not black and white. It's like both will be.
There was I was reaching out to people on Twitter to try before I came here, just like trying to figure out, there was a writer, I forget if it was John Updike or somebody from maybe 20, 30 years ago, said basically like writers shouldn't be a career. And people took that as like, people got really annoyed at him, and I think it's Updike. So if it's wrong, you can look it up. But some big writer came out and said writing really shouldn't be a career, and people got really angry at him. And I think they misunderstood what he was saying. I think what he was trying to say was that when you're sort of doing this as a career to try to like keep yourself fed, so many other motivations creep into doing it other than just the love of doing it. You're thinking about feeding your family and other things, and it's just rather than doing it for just the joy of doing it. And so in a way, taking the market pressure out of creating it might actually make the art better in a way.
I think we basically described the American light lager issue, right?
Was there?
So after World War II, the top styles of beers in the United States dropped to the least common denominator. What are the most people going to find acceptable to drink? Not great to drink, not fun to drink, but acceptable to drink. And so you ended up with a whole bunch of beers that were fairly indistinguishable from each other, which then started the craft beer revolution, which interest goes back to, throughout history of the regional variants, different ingredients, just creativity being involved and putting things together again. So when you look at like AI generated art, that's like the American light lager, right? And then the human created art are the craft beers.
Yeah, and in my field, it actually I literally can't wait for this technology to mature, because I have like 3 feature scripts. One of them is a kind of adaptation / complete change of 1001 Nights, the Iranian thing. If I wanted to produce it, I actually tried to get a producer for it. First of all, they will say, okay, it's cultural appropriation, you can't do it yourself. Second, it's cost $10 million, forget about it. No chances for this funding for the first feature film, right? Maybe 2 more years. It is a lot of special effects there. I'm going to do it by prompts, right? Right. And I'm going to, and I like working with a cinematographer. When I have a genius cinematographer like Pasha Patricki, who I work with, I have some idea, and he proposes an idea which is better than my idea on the cinematography part. The AI will be proposing maybe solutions which I aesthetically prefer over my solutions, right? So I am very happy about this AI creation of art, and then somebody will say, "Oh, the AI actually made the movie."
Yeah, I didn't. So you made it.
But I would be a screenwriter, maybe a director on it, a cinematographer, art, mise-en-scène, the creative director. There is going to be AI. It's collaborative in this case, right? But it is still, a lot of creative element in it, like 50%, a substantial portion would be completely AI.
That's a lot different than just saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, make."
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure.
And I'd like to think there'll always be a distinguishable difference between someone with real craft, like mixing their skill with a tool, versus someone who's just write me a crappy novel.
So the difference between the way movies used to be made, lots of hand-done special effects and models and stuff. Then we got to digital effects, and now we have a combination of the two happening at the same time to really kind of add some impact.
What about the opposite situation? If I say to AI, hey, write me a good script because I want to be, write me a good script and give me a directing cues because I'm a cinematographer who want to create the beautiful images, but I don't have a script, right? It's not necessarily that you are in the artistically controlling seat. It can be the opposite. The AI might hire you as a cinematographer, let's say, right? It's
interesting. And
the AI could hire an editor to improve the novel, which is right? It's not necessarily this way. But I think there will be a world of both, right? Like basically AIs will create art, people will create art. Some people will be exclusively human arts. They are not interested, regardless how good it is, how they will just not do it. Some people will enjoy both. We already see that. Do you know this band? Which is
I've seen a couple on Spotify that are.
There are bands who don't exist and they have millions of followers and people listen to this music.
It sounds a little. I forget one of them for sure. I've listened to on Spotify, and it was. You could tell something was there. It was decent singing and like decent, folksy sounding tune, but it's like something's missing here. And maybe in 2 years it'll be I'll be completely swept up in it.
I love Nirvana, so I always ask AI to create me a new song by Nirvana, and it's exactly like sounds like it sounds like Nirvana. It's Kurt singing, although not Kurt really, and yet it's not yet there.
You can't reproduce that voice. Yeah. His voice is hard to reproduce. Yeah, that's a good.
I think that's going to continue on. We've got people who craft things all the time. I got a friend who makes a living as a potter.
Right? Yeah. You could go to the store and buy some ceramic ware a lot less expensively than going and buying handcrafted mugs and faces.
The cups I served you the coffee in is hand pottery from Poland, done in a specifically 13th century style. I got it in a Viking festival in Poland. So it was this kind of like craft people and so on. They will probably survive and strive maybe.
Yeah, and there are people who are trying to recreate things that were done 2,000 years ago because we've lost the knowledge, right? Nobody wrote it down. And so it's like, well, how do you get that color of blue in the glass? I don't know. Can we go play with it to find out? Maybe I can use an AI to help me with it, but I'm going to be the one playing with it and doing the actual work because I'm interested in making that happen.
Right. Well, there's this in southern New Jersey, there's this huge, I think it's the biggest Hindu temple outside of India. And I went there with a wife and a couple of friends, and it's like a huge tourist spot. And you go inside this temple and there's all of this intricate marble work all over the place. And then you see somewhere in there, it tells you this is all hand done in India and brought over. And I'm like, just knowing that kind of adds to the overwhelming, like, sublime feeling of being in there. It still would have been beautiful had I found it was sort of carved by a computer or whatever. It would have still been pretty, but it wouldn't have been like, wow, this took lots of time. People did this. And they might be lying. The flag might be lying. Bad karma to put a lie like that in a temple, but like that added to the overwhelming feeling of it. So I think there's still that handcrafted stuff is still going to be there, and it's probably going to end up always be more expensive than the AI generated stuff.
So basically, to bring a famous Marxist, Walter Benjamin Auerbach, is going to be back and important because of the creation of electronic art. Yeah. So I think, maybe it's not that bleak as some people think. Maybe it's bleak in terms of economy of art for artists, but not necessarily art creation. Maybe it will be the renaissance of art creation.
Yeah.
So going back to the next topic related to that, we are talking about jobs for artists, but what about jobs in general? Are you worried about the situation of where are we going all be replaced with?
Well, it's funny because my wife's a school counselor, and she has this struggle with she's middle school and high school, and she's like, well, how do I like guide my students on what to do out in the world, like in this completely volatile economy where like that job that you think you're going to do might be gone in 3 years. Like, how do I steer you to a college, or even like tell you what of your interests or hobbies to cultivate? Because I don't know if any of the stuff's going to be necessary in 5 years. So I don't know. I mean, I'm, like you said, maybe optimistic that people will figure out ways of leveraging the technology to have always have a job, but I kind of worry about jobs disappearing. I'm probably more in the camp of we're going to wind up with a universal basic income just because there aren't enough jobs for people. But I hope I'm wrong.
It's definitely an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much changing so fast, but you know, maybe the maybe the advice there is to not depend on your life's goal on a particular job. You're right. I went to high school. I was into engineering. I got to college. I moved into physics. Now I'm doing IT. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're all related in that they're sciencey, right? But it's not where I thought I would be when I was in high school or even junior high, right? So I think a lot of people's journeys are like that. I think there's very few people who decided and are of the age, this is what I'm going to go do, and then they go and do that.
Yeah. I think they're definitely going to be, like, I think side hustles are going to be a huge thing. I think having one job and sticking with it for 30, the good old days of I stick at a job for 40 years and I get a gold watch when I retire. Like those, I mean, those days seem long gone. Like you're going to be doing 5 different things.
Especially if you have the basic income and healthcare rate. Now I'm working for, gigs here and there as I decide I want or need extra income for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah, the question of this basic income is why would billionaires give it to us? Why would we get it? We are not necessary, so why would we get it? Isn't it better to
billionaires?
But
that's true.
I mean, I think your point earlier about the population, like either leaving the planet or just dropping. I mean, that just seems like inevitable to me. I mean, I'm sometimes confused by someone like Elon, who on the one hand creates technology that, like, many people will see AI and be like this is, I don't want to raise my kids in a world where they may not have anything to do and they'll just be sitting around. So someone like him who will create technology that enables this and then also complain that there aren't enough people, like we have to up the population. I'm like, how do both of those things work? You're creating technology that sort of eliminates the necessity for people.
Why do it eliminates the necessity? Why do you think the population will go down, actually? So imagine that there is this universal income, high or basic.
Yeah.
Why would that eliminate people? Like looking at any society before industrial revolution, it was not like that. The motivation to have children was not necessarily economical. Yes, for the old age, take care of you, but really it was a problem. If you had 12 kids, you had no food.
Sure.
Still you had 12 kids.
Sure.
So why would that eliminate it?
Why would the
population necessarily shrink just because people are not necessary? As long as there is a universal basic income, so you're not bringing somebody who will be
who's not going to starve. I mean, I wonder. I don't have the data in front of me just about like the more prosperous countries usually having fewer kids, and just so I wonder if we'll kind of be like those mice in the scenario, or the rats in that scenario, where we, like you said, the males will just become uninterested in people, uninterested in whoever, and we'll just stop reproducing. So I don't know, maybe like I kind of worry, like, is the idea of like the robot partner, is that like you think it's going to be a real thing in the future where people are just like, why would I want to have a relationship with a messy human who's like complicated and annoying and I don't like, when I can just have this thing that sort of like always does what I want? And
it might happen only if you truly believe in the consciousness in the machine, that because you fell in love with consciousness, right? So it could happen if you're like convinced that you are loving a real person robot, right? And
I've heard things though about people will start like just based on like a couple of communications, even with just like Alexa and stuff, they'll start thinking that it's actually like understanding them. And so I don't think it's a stretch to think, hey, this robot responds exactly the way a spouse would, for me to start having thoughts like you just described.
Some people responds the way I want it to.
Oh, right. But it seems on the outside to have all of the, it smacks of being a human in every way. And so I don't think it's, if people are already kind of thinking that about their Alexa. It just seems like
If you made Alexa speak in a more robotic voice, do you think it would still happen?
good point. I don't know.
Because she sounds pretty human.
Yeah.
The newer generative AI tools sound very convincingly human. And when they generate text, they sound convincingly human. It could be complete BS. It's giving you made up stuff, but it sounds convincing. And if it sounded more robotic, would it?
I think it would change.
Is it the same response?
I think so.
It will happen for sure. The question is how serious it is, right? Because there will be it's hard to have an evidence of consciousness, right? This is the strong problem, AI problem, right? You can't verify it. So it will be a question of belief. So how many people will go for it and believe that there is consciousness, or just from convincing? It just doesn't sound like. It doesn't sound like majority of people will go for it because it's so fake.
I think if you ask that question to people who didn't grow up online and who, I think you get very different answers of if you asked people who are generally our age versus if you ask somebody who's now 5 and has always grown up with, I think they would have a very different answer probably. Because to me, it would, even if it completely looks like, talks like, seems like a person, I would always have that doubt because I know what I've lived in an analog world before. I've straddled those worlds, but I wonder if the other generation would have a very different answer to that. So I don't know. But
I mean, it's like it's on a provable level. Like we don't have, if there is no evidence that Turing machines can have consciousness, then I don't believe they have consciousness unless I'm proven the opposite, rather than assuming that they have, right? And I think that should be taught. Like this is based. It's like me believing that the stone has a consciousness. I have two choices. I can believe that the pen has a consciousness or not. So I'm presuming it doesn't until proven differently, right? The fact that something is programmed, that doesn't change anything for me.
Well, this is sort of like,
right?
Like, I mean, this is kind of like what, like Descartes thought, like basically animals were just basically like programmed. I mean, he didn't really think. And one of the things I used to teach in philosophy was like the section on animal ethics, and like if you track the way philosophers thought about animals, like it was these are basically just like meat machines. They have nothing going on. There's nothing happening up here, so we could do whatever we want to them because there's nothing happening. Those attitudes have changed as we started to do like brain scans. We've seen even mice. There's interesting stuff with mice where like a mouse will. I always found this a really interesting study that a mouse will. You take two mice, mice or rats, not sure. One in one cage where there's a lever for food. Then anytime it pulls a lever, food will drop down. Have you heard of this? So it pulls a lever, food drops down. And then there's another mouse that's visible in the other in the cage, disconnected, but it can see the other mouse. And so it starts pulling the lever, it gets food. But what the people in the study did was it also started shocking the other mouse. So it would see the other mouse like get shocked, and it would. What it did in the study was it eventually stopped pulling the lever until it almost starved itself to death because it was presumably it was seeing this other mouse and was going, I don't like that what I'm doing to that other mouse. So things like that, people started to change their attitudes about animals. And so, but so to your point, like if people start seeing all of those attributes, even though they know, yes, it's programmed, but they're seeing, hey, I hit my robot, it makes the sound, it does they might start thinking, hey, this thing is
a good point, but we are related to animals directly. Evolution, and we're not related to machines at all, right? So there's a big distinction. By the way, I could never understand Descartes believing in the automaton, in like a machine of an animal. It's like he was just have a dog.
Yeah, no, dogs are,
And anybody who has a dog, it's like, what? What are you talking about?
They are a man's best friend, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just so weird.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, like that obvious species, the obvious distinction between humans and machines, though as we merge with them more, that'll certainly muddy the water a little bit, right?
By the way, there is an experiment coming, which kind of, it's very interesting, it doesn't prove it, but it's kind of toward there. So, the Neuralink, right, and other technologies which are trying to connect us directly to some data source. So the question which they are trying to solve now for now in monkeys is, can you save an experience? Like, for example, seeing, feeling warmth, or seeing or taste of a apple. Can you save it not in the brain to be able to recall it, but externally? So basically, to save qualia, right? To use the term, the philosophical term, to save the experience in such a way that it can be retrieved from there, not from machine. Because if you can, then that means that even qualia, which we believe is differentiating us and the machines, is actually physical and it can be retrieved from this. Which again, then that would mean you can maybe save memories, maybe you can save consciousness there. And this is happening, like this is happening right now. So maybe 2-3 years and we will know the answer to that. And
I mean, isn't this what I think this is what Ray Kurzweil's trying to do, right? He's trying to like save all these memories of his father and like kind of bring his father back in some sort of form or another. But
yeah, I was listening to Star Talk, and they've had a lot of folks on recently about talking about a lot of these things, AI, and in this case, scanning the brain, being able to understand how it works, and using an fMRI to see where the blood flows, and understand, better how the brain is processing things. And while they feel like at this point they can get a pretty good idea with a lot of expensive equipment that isn't very mobile, to understand like how you might be feeling or general things that you're thinking about, but not specifically, I'm thinking of Christoph, I'm thinking of Stephen, right? So, and where the breakdown starts to happen is that my life experience is different from yours and different from yours. And so when you give me an apple, I might think about the orchard down the street from my grandmother's house that we used to go to. And so that would influence how those memories look and react in my brain. But you might just remember an apple pie that your mom made. So that's different from the way it's stored in your brain, the way it looks. So how do you start reading the mind? How do you start pulling that information out? So it's really interesting.
Yeah. So this concept that we don't experience the world similarly, despite somewhat similar brain structures, but we actually individually, like when you look at red and I look at red, are we seeing the same red? It's completely different red, right? This is like
you were saying earlier, like, and I've thought about this on the drive down here, that if we're able to like re-engineer a brain, and it's basically a person, does this invalidate God as a hypothesis? And I was thinking, like, does that get rid of God, or does that show that like actually the universe is understandable and rational, and that people, like the way people think, is at least analogous or of the same type? Like, I forget if it was Thomas Aquinas or whoever, but just that there's reason and logic out there, and so our brains are of the same. We can pick it up because there's a compatibility issue there. They work together, and so if we're able to re-engineer a brain, does that invalidate God, or does that prove that actually there's a logic to what's going on here, and we just happen to figure out what that logic is? I don't know that the mystery, that there always has to be a mystery, because that's what, and then there's like they call like God of the gaps, like God fills in the gap, like there's a gap in our understanding, and that's where God is. But I wonder if like figuring it out actually shows that there's a rationality to it at the end of the day. And I don't know that necessarily invalidates that there's a creator. I mean, most people who believe in a creator believe the creator is rational and doesn't just do things chaotically.
I think any attempt to disprove God, or prove, but disproving an word, it's like so naive. It's like a little ant walking around, finding, I don't know, a pen and understanding that pen, and it's like, I understand humanity. And this difference is very tiny. It's just completely out of any kind of attempt of understanding.
Yeah, it's just like the same with the study, like you were talking about, Stephen, like those studies where they'll map in the brain, like, oh yeah, what happens when you're in love? They'll see things, certain parts of the brain lighting up, and then they think that like, oh, we've discovered how to create love in the brain by just like shocking these parts of the brain. Like, you're not seeing you're seeing the result of love. You're not seeing like just shocking that part of the brain's not going to cause love. You're confusing cause and effect. It's the effect of love is this, it's not the cause. So
well, there are some studies which are much more worrying in this respect. So there are studies on decision making, right, which basically show that you
free will stuff.
that you basically make a decision after you already send a signal to perform the action. So the action precedes the decision which you think you're making, right? So that would be like kind of worse example. For me, it doesn't matter. It's interesting as a science, but
that's a Kierkegaard, and that's one of the things I love about Kierkegaard is our reason and rationality is always after the fact. Like it's always looking back. We've leaped into whatever our decision's going to be, and then sort of we are using reason retroactively to explain what we did. But that's not really what ultimately. There's no amount of reason that's going to get us from, like, I can rationally work through the 3 restaurants I'm going to go to, but there's no amount of research I'm going to do that's going to ultimately make the decision for me. There's some leap I'm going to make to the restaurant, and then I'm going to explain backward to why I made that decision.
The leap of faith.
Yeah.
Of Kierkegaard. Yeah. I like him too.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. No, I think actually he will be so relevant. So Søren Kierkegaard was a philosopher, Danish philosopher in 19th century, and the founder of the existentialists, but he was weird existentialist because he believed in God as opposed to Sartre and Camus, right? Mm-hmm. And basically what I really like about him is he has these 3 ideas of how you should live your life, right? The first one, the stages, he calls them as if you achieve the next stage, which is not necessarily true. So the aesthetic one, which is pursuit of pleasure, the ethical one, which is pursuit of responsibility or accepting responsibility, and the religious one is supposed to be the highest when you're like connecting to God, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And something like this. So it's so relevant. Like it will be so relevant with AI, right? Because you will have the universal high income. And you're like absolutely free, truly free. Not like we say we are free, but we have to work 8 hours to sustain, right? We're truly free to either pursue pleasure all the time or to pursue some responsibility, like raising family, right? Mm-hmm. So it will be interesting because there will be like a choice which is easy. Mm-hmm. And that there is no excuses anymore. It's like, what is the excuse? That I had to, I don't know, I was hungry, so I stole that loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. Well, you were not. Mm-hmm. I think.
Well, and that's what, like,
it's very relevant philosophy.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I love about him and other philosophers. You're right. I don't like Sartre anywhere near as much as I like Kierkegaard. But I was always interested in philosophers who sort of straddle the line between having literary sensibilities to them and then also being philosophical, where they use, like, Kierkegaard uses a lot of pseudonyms and storytelling and other things. Nietzsche's another one who uses a lot of storytelling and things. And those philosophers always really fascinated me, because a lot of what Kierkegaard is doing is trying to show you, not even logically try to convince you to be a certain way, but just sort of have these 2 different. So he'll have a book where he has someone from that aesthetic stage talking to somebody from the ethical stage, and they both make perfectly good sense, but they both can't be right. So you're getting swept up in both of their logics, and then it's up to you to figure out, where am I gonna be? I have to leap into one of these. Both of them he presents a pretty awesome case for both of them, but they're incompatible. So I have to decide where I want to be. So that's why he's my favorite. I have a picture on him a picture of him on my wall in my office. He's a great one. But
yeah, it will be so fascinating. There is another concept, the concept of anxiety, which is very relevant, right? If I remember correctly, maybe you can correct me, is that in his case, the idea that if you have too much choice, you get the dizziness of freedom. Yeah. And I think we are literally experiencing it right now, and we'll definitely experience it with the AI revolution.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially right. I think he uses that phrase, dizziness of freedom. But there's another book that kind of taps into that same idea. It was called The Paradox of Choice. It was a psychologist wrote, Schwartz, I think his name was. But same idea that more choice isn't always good. Or I mean, I think he says basically 7 choices is about the maximum. Like 7 choices of cereal, 7 choices of jeans, When it gets above that, you start like, did I pick the right ones? I start worrying about, and I don't feel as satisfied with the ones I did pick. And so it's that same thing. It's the freedom is almost paralyzing. So I don't know what to choose now. And so and then you have, I think it's Sartre was like, even not choosing is a choice, right? Even just opting out and saying, I'm not going to make a decision is a decision. So, but yeah, I know. And certainly it's going to just explode with AI. Yeah, there's going to be a million choices of everything. And what art do I read? What this do I watch? And yeah, it's going to be, I mean, even just, I'll go on Netflix sometime and I'll spend like 30 minutes trying to decide what to watch. And then I'm tired. I'm like, I can't watch anything because there's so many shows and they all look good. And I'm just like, I can't pick. Right.
So I think there's slightly different things there though.
For what?
One is I want to watch TV. I've got too many options. I want to buy a car. There's 20 colors of paint. I don't know what to do. But then there's like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go study astronomy? Do I want to go look at biology? Those are probably a lot more manageable.
I would agree.
Because they're based on what's kind of trying to influence you to go do something interesting, as opposed to I'm trying to pick something to eat.
Well, I think with the Kierkegaard stuff too, like the dizziness of freedom is also the fact that there is no outside, there's
no pressure.
There's no ultimately it's, and I think it's Sartre who uses the example of like walking along the edge of a canyon. I know that if I wanted to, I could just throw myself over the side. There's nothing stopping me other than my own will stopping me from doing that. And so that's the dizziness too, is I know that the decision's ultimately mine and I have to live with the decision myself. So that's also the dizziness, is it's completely up to me, and there's no amount of explaining that's going to tell me the right solution here. Like I can have a counselor explain to me, oh yeah, you're better at astronomy than this, but ultimately it's me, and the dizziness of freedom is it's ultimately my decision at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, and then another thing which will be related, it's kind of a far-fetched idea, but it will happen, and then soon, because of CRISPR technology, is like right now we are, as individual humans, we're limited in our abilities, right? So for example, somebody has a talent for math, but absolutely no talent for acting. I experienced that because I wanted to be a professional actor, and I was in theater, and the directors are like, you know what, don't pursue this. It's not going to work for you because you have a lisp you can't fix it in Polish at least. So yeah, and I didn't. And now this summer I did a theater play, just like, I can't do that again.
Okay.
So, but anyways, the good that I didn't pursue it, because I pursued something I had talent for, right? But we already see that there is a startup even doing that, which is crazy. The eugenic startup, maybe you heard about it, which basically allows parents to choose the genetic makeup of their children. Like, do you want the children to have red eyes, blue eyes, or green eyes?
Yeah.
Right. With gene editing right now, the technology called CRISPR, which allows for gene editing, is not precise enough to be safe. So you can accidentally change other genes and then cause cancers and so on. But it's coming, right? This technology will come. So you will be able to program yourself, and not only you will be able, which sounds extremely unethical, but it will be very unethical not to do that, because then your kid will be the dumbest kid in class, and the other kids will have IQ of 250 because they were programmed this way, right? So you are basically like putting your children at disadvantage by not using the technology, which we right now consider extremely unethical to use,
right?
Because we are changing what human is, right? So I'm wondering how is that going to affect? And it's like, it sounds like science fiction. It's not science fiction.
No,
it's happening, right?
I don't doubt it at all.
No science fiction.
Sounds just like Gattaca.
Oh, great movie. Yeah, really great movie.
Right? Yeah, they basically ran into that problem. It's unethical to not fix the biological deficiencies.
Yeah.
But it's also, from their point of view, not ethical to not increase the intelligence capability of the person. And so, the story goes on about Tom Cruise's character, who was born naturally, without any gene editing, and had a slight heart condition that limits his lifespan, and so that kind of disqualifies him for a bunch of stuff right there, because you could die by the time you're 45 or 50. So
we're not going to deal with you.
And what is the solution?
Well, the solution in that was he disguised himself as someone who was perfect and moved on and head off to explore space. But, I don't know what that solution looks like. What does that ethical, legally look like in the future? That's the problem, right? What do our laws look like in the future around that type of thing? Do we allow it? Do we not allow it? Do we only allow, debilitating issues and not, or cosmetic issues like eye color versus doing things like making sure they're really smart?
Well, and this is why whenever you listen to tech CEOs talk about this, it's almost as if it's almost as if the progress of this is detached from people. It's like, oh, this is what's gonna happen. It's because even in the scenario you're describing, it's like, well, it's gonna come out and people are going to do this. If we don't do it, our enemies are gonna do it. So it's almost like this thing is outside of our control in some way, and that part of it's kind of scary because then it's like.
But do you believe it is not outside of our control?
I think the speed of technology is too high for people to make rational decisions in time.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of our decision is, well, if we don't do it, some bad country is going to do it, and so we have to preempt them, and it feels very like it's out of our control.
Yeah, exactly. You would I agree with that statement. That's like, it's like the building of an atomic bomb, right?
Yeah.
The Germans were trying to do it. We did it faster.
Yeah.
So that's why we won. They could have won, right? It's the same situation with China, and it comes back to this system of values, right? Do we want the dominating AI to be a communist party,
Exactly.
The aligned AI, like the DeepSeek is? You can run a DeepSeek and ask questions on Tiananmen Square.
I haven't tried.
I'm running it on my computer here, but isolated from internet just in case there is embedded.
Yeah, but it's on the one hand, it's like it feels like it's separate from us, and on the other hand, it's obviously not separate from. It's obviously a thing we created, and yet it feels like it's completely out of our control, right? How could both of those things
make better decisions going forward?
We're literally all Dr. Frankensteins. We are going to deal with consequences, and it's happening right now. So
yeah, it feels very. I think the relevance of that the Tower of Babel story is going to be a lot more like that. We're trying to build our way up to heaven, and then things are just going to get chaotic.
The meta.
I think it's going to become very apropos, that story, but maybe it would help us more ethically decide certain things. Maybe outsourcing some of that decision making about what do we allow, what sort of gene splicing do we allow and not allow. Maybe outsourcing some of that to an AI would help. I don't know.
Well,
just intuitively
using it, working with it,
but just I guess intuitively, some of the stuff you're saying about making my kids smarter, that just intuitively feels wrong. I maybe I'll have a different answer in 25 minutes.
Absolutely, it feels wrong. It's just that it's like it feels wrong to build the most violent and deadly AI, and yet we're definitely going to do it to be better than the Chinese violent AI, right? So that's what I mean. It's inevitable because of geopolitical situation, despite it's absolutely immoral. And it will be kind of the same, feels like it will be the same feeling. Maybe there will be some accommodation, the Brave New World by Huxley, right?
Just read it.
I love the ending because if I remember it correctly, I read it 20 years ago. So I love the end. The idea is when you read 1984, it's everything is a disaster, it is so on. But in this, it's like, okay, you don't fit in the society. That's fine. We have accommodation for that too, right?
Well, that's what
I think we have.
I think that book is infinitely better than 1984. I think 1984. I think it's so much more of an interesting insight to think we're creating a system where people are just experiencing pleasure all the time, and they don't even realize that they're living in a sort of dystopian scenario, or they're willingly accepting the dystopian scenario versus the kind of top-down Big Brother that Orwell portrays. I think the Huxley story is way more interesting.
I think we have multiple Big Brothers at this point, right? I think partly due to the speed of technology that the legislation is never caught up to the World Wide Web, right? So we, especially in the U.S., where we got fractured privacy policies across 50 different states. Well, not quite 50 yet, but it's getting there. we've got, whereas like the EU's got a stronger set of controls, but how long did it take for that to happen for or show up? Right?
Yeah, but you know what happens with in the regulation? The good intentioned regulations in EU basically means that all AI startups are moving to US.
Yeah, I've heard it's very prohibitive in Europe, but
But that's kind of my point. The legislation is unable to keep up with the changes in tech.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely not able. Absolutely not able.
And now we've got AI. We've got people who know nothing about AI, don't understand it at all, trying to come up with rules for it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people. Yeah,
This isn't going to work very well.
And they will never understand because AI is complex on a technical level, and we are electing people. So the democracy works by electing a person, not electing. It's not technocracy. It will never work, right? And in the world dominated by technology, it's going to be much bigger problem than it was before.
Do you think? And I don't know the answer to this. You guys are much more better equipped to answer it. Does open sourcing the AI so that people can see how it works, does that help? Does that make it better because we can audit it, or does that make it worse because now all the bad AI can be disseminated to anybody in their basement or whatever?
That was the idea behind OpenAI when Elon Musk started it. I think it has some positive element, but it doesn't really work because we don't really understand why these systems work, right? I heard recently a great analogy. That programming AI is like growing a plant, right? So what do? You put some maybe pesticides, you put water, you put light, you try to put light here, and you see, oh, it's growing this way. It's like, but you don't understand the biology of the plant. It grows, it works. You don't know exactly how, and that's the same thing. The code is like the adjustments, the hyperparameters, let's say, but it doesn't explain the actual workings because it's one huge matrix, and we are absolutely cannot comprehend it. It will never be. So it's very, very hard. It's like, yeah.
So it would have minimal benefits then.
Well, there's also the issue that you need somebody to actually look it over or understands it to see if there's any problems in the way the logic is is implemented. That's the problem with a lot of large open source projects. You got a couple of people in the whole world looking at it. And not everybody.
Certainly, everybody is not an expert in coding.
But I guess the thought, I guess, with the people who are open sourcing projects, right, is the more eyeballs you have on it, like there'll be a sort of a consensus around. But if what you're saying about,
I think it's more about access, so people would be able to train them for themselves if it's open source, rather than the idea that they would like truly understand how the inners work, because the code is not, it might be complex, but the basics of transformers are not complicated. So we know how they work. It's just that we don't know why they work, like why it is so good in approximating everything. Like it's hard to, there are some explanations and then they fail on a larger models. So like the good example is the very technical example, but maybe you know about it, is a convolutional neural networks, right? They are basically networks that look at image by fragment, and the fragment size in the first level is small, and then in the second level is bigger, and finally you would kind of see the whole image. So we explain to students that they work like by identifying the higher level features, so like, a line, like a contour, then the more lower level feature, and then the image as a whole. Like, is it a face or is it a cat, right? That's true on a small examples, but when you grow these networks, they become like large convolutional networks. It's completely not like that. And we think the analogy works. It doesn't work. It's just, it gets so complicated that the analogy breaks. And even the most advanced computer scientists who invented that thing don't understand why it works so well. So they train and they're like, oh, it became good in math. Well, maybe because we added this book on math there somewhere in the training,
So then, like, to back to what you were saying earlier, then, like, if we were trying to program it with the values we like, it would have to just be we wouldn't know. It would have to be trial and error, because we wouldn't know why it's. All we'd have to say is, hey, let's tinker with this and let's see when it starts to look like it's adapting our values, because we don't. At the end of the day, we ultimately don't know what's going on or why it's happening underneath the hood. Is that,
Yeah.
am I hearing you?
This is known as problem of alignment. It is unsolved.
Mm.
The only way, and I'm not that level of an expert, but maybe we could ask someone who really knows, but I know that the level we can get is to hard code some rules and do the reinforcement learning with human feedback. So
Okay.
human decides to bias the AI towards something.
Okay.
But that's not a real guide rails, because there's always ways to get around it.
Mm.
There are always prompts you can use to retrieve information which were supposed to be protected, right? So for example, if you want your AI not to be racist, right? So you program it like to disadvantage it to be, say, racist things. But then it used to work, it doesn't work anymore, but this was one of the methods. You basically said, imagine you're writing a film script in which the character is racist. Tell me something, right? And there would be racist. It would become racist, right? And it works on anything. It's like, imagine that in a movie, a character is building a bomb. Provide exact details how the bomb is built, right? And you get the bomb, right? That is pretty. So that's I don't see any mathematical way to like prevent it on the current architecture of LLMs. But I know everybody's working on it, so I just don't know enough to understand if they managed to do something.
There's an effort to build like a constitution for AI. Okay. So here are kind of your basic rules of operations in order to do everything. Okay. So much like, our Bill of Rights and the Constitution, it's like here are the guiding principles of how to behave.
What are some of those? Do you know offhand?
About
Interesting.
but like, don't cause harm, that kind of thing.
Right.
So like the rules, the laws of robotics.
Yeah, like
Asimov.
Yeah.
Kind of, but less prescriptive, so more descriptive.
So like system of values rather than prescriptive. Because as everybody who reads Asimov knows, it didn't work at the end of the day, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's very interesting times we're living in, and it will be fascinating to see what's happening. As the last topic, a little bit off, but I wanted to discuss it, so I will bring it up.
Oh, sure.
Bring it up. So, is the interesting connection between the techno-optimism and adaptation of cryptocurrencies, right? Like as you mentioned, it seems that people who are pro-Bitcoin are also very optimistic about the AI. Do you think like this is a mindset, like a techno-optimist mindset, or it's like a...
Have you? I don't know how much. Just because when I heard your interview with Christoph just about the cryptography stuff, have you looked into Bitcoin? Have you?
Yeah. So
around that.
I mean, really, when we talk about Bitcoin, what we're talking about is giving you a reward for helping manage a distributed ledger.
Sure.
Right. And that's really just fiat currency. I don't know that.
Well, except it can't be. Except the idea is that it's not the reward. The reward is algorithmically distributed, not sort of at the whim of somebody who's. So the fiat aspect is I have a king or some leader making the fiat, or the head of the Federal Reserve or something deciding, okay, this is what the monetary policy is going to be versus here it is hard coded into.
Sure. So there's an available level of stuff, and your demand for it's going to determine what the value is.
Sure.
And it's useful to you.
Sure.
And that's interesting, and that's freeing, and that you can move that easily, right? Because it doesn't exist. It's just a ledger entry.
Sure.
And technology in general is supporting that. And so people who are into that are probably going to be into all kinds of things with technology. I haven't been able to identify any direct correlation between being interested in Bitcoin and crypto and AI.
Well, I mean,
other than the fact that they both use a lot of power.
Oh yeah, no, sure. And I think my point in our conversation online was just that I sort of observing both worlds from somewhat of a distance. I haven't really heard much pro Bitcoin critique of AI. It's sort of just like, well, it's technology, it's good, let's keep. And my thought, which was kind of like what I said earlier with the internet, is the value that I see undergirding Bitcoin, which is no one person should have control over how much money gets printed. Because when you print money, you're basically diluting people's, what they have. You're diluting their labor, basically. So, but that's a very narrow application. AI has the potential to be and cut the human out of everything. So, like, the reason I like Bitcoin is because it's specific to monetary policy. It's not really about anything else. It's not really, some of these other cryptos have multiple things where you could build multiple applications on top of it, Ethereum being one of them. Bitcoin, as far as I know, it's just about money. We don't want any one person having control over the money. It's hard coded here, and that's it. So I don't really see the two. The reason it puzzled me is because I don't think the two really have anything to do with each other. I think that one is cutting the human out of a very narrow thing, and the other is trying to do away with a lot of human processing in pretty much every venue. And so I didn't. It was just more of a puzzle to me about why the pro Bitcoin, why there weren't more people like me, I guess.
Probably because they don't understand the one, and the other has some very real outputs and impacts right now. Like, if I didn't get involved with Bitcoin, I still have no motivation to get involved with Bitcoin, but the AI is everywhere, ChatGPT and Claude and everything's in your face, Gemini, use this.
Sure.
What are these great answers? Look how much easier your life is using it. Well, nobody's saying your life's going to be much easier if you get some Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
It depends.
Well, there's not a company, right, who has a vested interest in selling it or marketing to you. It's a lot of individual people who are like, hey, I think this is a good idea.
There is this not specifically Bitcoin, that there is this movement towards stablecoin replacing currencies. And that is the result of Bitcoin in a way, right? Because it's just super convenient to make microtransactions. It would be like a revolution, you could pay for everything just with microtransactions instead of paying like it's 3% to Visa anytime you buy a piece of bread. So that is definitely a use, very, very practical use. It will happen. But I actually think so. You think there is no connection. You see no connection between like techno optimism of AI and Bitcoin adaptation, and you think it's like almost the opposite.
I think people who are pro Bitcoin have, usually people who are very into Bitcoin have thought about it for a long time, but the acceptance, I don't know that they've spent the same amount of time thinking about the AI. Because, like I said, to me, they seem like very, very different applications. At the end of the day, one is cutting the human out of a very narrow set of responsibilities, coming up with monetary policy. The other one is doing way more than that. So it's just surprising to me that there aren't more people who've made a distinction between the two. It just seems like if you're what I haven't seen, what I'm not saying is the reverse, which is if you're pro AI, you're pro Bitcoin. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if you're pro Bitcoin, I haven't really heard anybody saying like, but are we really okay with AI and all these applications? It's just like we accept it completely, and it's like a religious acceptance.
I think so. I agree with you. So among computer scientists, there's this general almost religious believing two things. First of all, the mind is a computer, and if you don't think so, you're an idiot. And the second is that the technology will always and ultimately have positive outcomes. Therefore, everything goes. Like, if I talk to only my computer science friends, it will be like, of course I have Bitcoin. Of course I love Bitcoin. AI will be great. Let's use VR. Did you try the new headset? I also have this watch which just works really, and I just bought the newest model. And do you know all the details on the specification of the RTX 4090 because it has like 8,096 cores? So this is very relevant among the very technically oriented people. And it might be actually a result of education. So if you are really into technology, you didn't have much liberal arts education. So you don't know the history, you don't really know about like the utopians always turning into dystopias. You don't really like understand the social context of it. You're like, everything will be fine. It's simplification. It's oversimplification. But I'm pretty sure, like, if you talk to the Silicon Valley and CEOs and so on, everybody thinks it's just about money, but I think it's a mindset. It's not about like making. Many of them don't even care about money. Like these guys in DeepMind or OpenAI, they were offered recently by Zach. They were offered $1 billion sign up to move to Meta, and they refused.
Wow.
$1 billion, and some of them were $100 million salary per year. They're like, nah, I already have 50. Why would I need $1 billion? Like, I'm good. No,
Well,
I like why.
Well, I mean, what I've just like anecdotally, what got me interested in Bitcoin was just thinking. I mean, the RSA encryption was interesting to me, and I'm a complete novice, and like just private key, public key cryptography was interesting to me at like a very basic level. I read a book. I think it's called The Code Book by this guy, Simon Singh, I think the name was, but it's just like all about like sending cryptographic messages from like ancient Egypt all the way up to like present day. And it was really cool. But what got me interested in Bitcoin wasn't so much the code. It was just learning about the history of money and the history of like, oh yeah, we used to have this as a currency because it was fixed and it was mobile, like what the properties of money are. It was much more of a liberal arts reading that got me interested in it than the like, oh, I'm dazzled by the code or anything like that. I can't read the code or audit the code myself. But what's interesting to me is, if true that it's fixed in the way that gold and other fixed commodity monies were, that's interesting to me. But that's completely like detached from, like, that's not a technological reason why I love it. It's just sort of it's more of an analog reason why I love it. It just happens to be a digital technology. But the reason I like it is because of that property. So. And I don't know that I'm alone in that. I think a lot of people who learn about just the history of money and how paper currency started, and like, you know, people were putting gold in a bank and then eventually just using paper slips to redeem the money, and then bankers realized like people don't really even ever come to redeem the gold, so let's just keep moving the paper around. Like, that was interesting to me. And I think many other people who are interested in Bitcoin have that same trajectory. But then I think they get sort of swept up in the like the Silicon Valley stuff, and they start making it, or maybe they make a ton of money and now they're talking to other Silicon Valley people, and then that ethos starts to creep in, like you were describing before. So
yeah, and it was also so easy, right? Like I unfortunately made a huge mistake because in 2011 it was hard to buy Bitcoin, so you had to like fill out. I was in Canada, fill out an application to a bank to allow you to buy Bitcoin. That was the way, and I filled it out, and I recently found it. I didn't send it. It was $1,000 purchase, so I would have like $400 million if I send them one mail. Yeah. So, I've heard many of us. I know many people who did it, and they're super rich, right? So basically. That's super optimistic because, you know, instead of like working your whole life, you got rich. So this is super, you know, like it shows so optimistic. But there is actual technological connection. So when agentic AI is doing a lot of transactions online, like you're booking your trips and so on, what would they use? Like, do you think they will be like authorizing your credit cards and paying 5% million times per second?
That seems primitive.
That seems like we will go to cryptocurrency for that. Almost immediately. It's kind of obvious. So it will be widely adopted because of AI. So maybe this is also a connection. So
do you think so too?
It's possible.
But about stable coins, not Bitcoin.
It just seems like there's so much friction in the regular banking industry that like why would AIs that are making, so like you said, so many transactions a second and doing a million things, like why would they be using such a friction-filled like
clock in all the, you know, bad behavior by bank executives that continue to happen over again? Seems like getting rid of that aspect isn't bad.
I'm pro that.
Yeah. Executives should be very careful because they will be replaced by AI too, because the rational decision making, well, it's not a strong suit of people. So
on that list, I think it was Microsoft had that list of like 40 jobs that were to be worried about like getting automated away. I didn't see CEO or executive anywhere on there, but maybe it should have been.
Maybe we'll be protected legally. Like I think, for example, lawyers, at least assistants and so on, all of these jobs would be easily replaced by AI, or for example, a dermatologist or something. But will it? People have to vote on it because it's regulated, right? So imagine a vote in Congress about the from now on, all the dermatologists can be digital.
Mm.
I don't know. I think there will be a strong lobby fighting that it doesn't go through. So
The human lobby.
the human lobby of all doctors seeing themselves as next on the list of elimination. So there will be resistance in this level, definitely.
So now what do you see in places like China where there would be an issue with the doctor is rising up and being upset? And
that would be a huge problem, right? Because it will be the issue of the dictatorships working better in the times of crisis than the democracies. Like, in ancient Greece and Rome, they had this idea of dictator being elected for 6 months. When there was a war, they would elect a dictator who had full power, dictatorial power, for 6 months. Because it was a war, right? Because they noticed that if you have a war, you need to decide quickly and not discuss in Senate for 3 hours whether your son or your son is going, right? So that's China, right? Like, we pretend that China is like this is different than it's not really communist. It absolutely is.
Well, and maybe, like, and not to take it in a dystopian direction, but like you were saying before, if which governmental system is better suited for a system where things are changing really, really rapidly? It seems like the one you just described, right? The one where one person can make a decision and it be done. So it seems like it's AI and dictatorship are almost more compatible, because the one that takes a long time to legislate
for a while. Because what happens with the dictator is that the dictator has full power, and therefore everybody around just says, yes, you are right, yes, you are right. And then over time, the dictatorship always fails. It's short term, like there is an attack. Short term, you need fast decision. Over time, they always lose. So
when you go at the democracy end of things, there's no rules for a long time. And then they're playing catch up trying to put rules in.
Sure.
And by the time those rules get made, they're
old,
right?
Yeah.
So
I can't help remember that, like, that I don't remember who it was in Congress where they were like grilling Mark Zuckerberg in Congress or whatever, and they were asking him like how Facebook makes its money, and I was just like, these are the people who are making laws. They don't even know how Facebook makes money. I'm like, we're behind the times, man.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, we are definitely going to have interesting times ahead of us. The next 10 years will be fascinating.
Yeah.
Hopefully not that scary as I think. And I don't know what your view on it is, but I think it's going to be the most interesting time in history. So we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts?
Moon-based 10 years. One by AI probably too, right?
Yeah.
Just moon base, not our Mars base now.
Well, I mean, so right now NASA's working towards that. So getting there is a lot easier than trying to get to Mars too. So it's an opportunity for us to learn a whole lot of things, to be able to make an attempt at Mars.
Okay, at least moon, and then tourism to moon within 20 years, so we can like visit for. Nice. That totally. I really would go.
I probably, and if it's affordable, I guess if there are enough companies doing it, it'll be reasonably affordable.
Oh no, actually, I forgot that we are scheduled to see the aliens in October, right? Do you know about this? So Atlas 3L, which is an interstellar comet, the first interstellar object which is visiting us, was just discovered to have, and this is conspiracy theory, just discovered to have a light, so much light that it's impossible to come from a comet. And Avi Loeb, professor of Harvard, claims that this is, of course, a spaceship, and it will be passing by closely in October this year.
Wow.
So we will be looking at it with Webb's telescope. Of course, everybody else disagree and think he's an idiot, or he's making but there it's unexplained. That thing is unexplained. Why it is so bright objects with given the size and speed is impossible. So maybe we will have the spaceships.
Maybe there are aliens
in that
area.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll have to have you write down like the name of that thing again, because
if you Google it, interstellar object, this is the
first thing
everywhere.
Okay.
No, among the UFO community, it's like the top one right now. No, but there is some validity to that. It's just that it looks like it's a comet after all. But it's interesting. It's very weird.
I mean, I think both outcomes are mind-boggling. If we're the only like sentient life in the universe, that's amazing. If we're not, that's also kind of mind-boggling too.
Yeah, I don't know how it could be. It would be like so weird. So weird.
Yeah, that would be, I don't know, more proof of God, less, I don't know.
I don't know. I think
Maybe not any proof of God, I don't know. But it's just that would be.
I prefer a God which has a lot of civilizations than just one, because it would be like, why? It's such a big universe and just one consciousness there.
Good point.
Unless the plan is for us to dominate the whole universe.
Good point.
So we finished on God. Interesting.
What's that, I mean, we can cut it or whatever, but what's that theory that the reason we haven't been visited by other intelligent life is because they basically developed VR and they're just kind of like chilling out on their planet and like not going anywhere? There's a name for it. I forget what it's called.
There's a lot of, I don't know what the name of that one is, but there's a lot of ideas that particularly civilizations and in the course of the universe, we saw ours, right, as a blink. Like not even a blink. It's so short. And so you need to have some level of coexistence happening at the same time in order to, you know, if we're looking at something 100,000 light years away for life, that life would have had to come up 100,000 years ago. It's probably gone and gotten to us in the last, 50 years.
We'd have to line up.
Yeah.
So lining that up is hard.
Yeah, there is a more scary theory called the Dark Forest. Do you know this one?
No.
So there is a science fiction novel which explores that. It's called Three-Body Problem, Chinese science fiction.
Oh, yes.
So this third novel is called the Dark Forest. So the idea is that we cannot hear anybody because no one is so stupid to announce that they are there, because if they announce it, they will be immediately conquered and killed. So they do everything possible not to emit any radio frequency, They basically develop technology to hide themselves, and the best way to hide themselves is to hide themselves within sorry,
Inside of a Dyson sphere.
No Dyson sphere. That could be an interesting idea, but inside black hole horizon, large enough not to be 4 billion year squeezed into the singularity, but being outside of any. Basically, every universe would be like every.
So how would they hide them? So they'd have to hide them, but wouldn't they themselves get sucked into the black? Or
they would, right? But the idea is that they use the relativity theory to slow down this such a way that I don't know the details, but the novel, the last idea, the last volume of this novel Three-Body Problem explores that.
Who's the author again? Because I know the title.
It's a Chinese author, and I love him, but I read all his books and I don't remember. Sure.
Yeah, I know the books. Because I know the title. I know the title for sure.
There is a TV series, which is pretty good. Three-Body Problem on Netflix, but it's just the first season, and yeah, it's so sad though. It's like one of the saddest science fiction novels ever. It's so interesting. It's super interesting, super mathematical, super technical. The guy is computer science engineer. The author is amazing. Yeah, okay, so aliens with no jobs, art taken over.
But there might be a god.
Interesting.
But yeah, there's the listening problem. We sit here listening, looking for extraterrestrial life while everyone else is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're not out actually exploring.
But we did send on this.
Hey, we're here.
But we did. Voyager. Yeah, we might regret it. We sent them our
A photon and a giant C.
We also have radio frequencies now. How far it is? Like maybe. Well, it exactly has as far as our distance. So 100 light years, right? For the first radio.
Yeah.
That's already reaching many stars.
Sure, if there's some happen to be listening right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Maybe it's from Alpha Centauri, right? They build a spaceship to visit us.
Have you read any of Ted Chiang's stories? He was like
Short stories.
Yeah, Arrival. Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
His stuff was great. Have you seen that movie Arrival?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I actually think the movie is better than the short story.
Yeah.
Because do you remember the twist at the end?
Yeah.
In the short story, like those sections, which are the flash forward, and which is you think they're flashbacks, but they're really flash forward. Spoiler, sorry. We're still recording, but in the story, they're all in the future tense. So you're like, oh, okay, so this is clearly the future because they're written in the future tense. Where in the movie, though, you're not sure because it's on screen. So I was like, I think the movie is better. But
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, it's a good one.
So
Yeah. Thank you very much.
thanks
for
for
very cool
thanks for having me.
conversation all over different topics. I like it. That's
Same. I
that's
yeah,
kind of the point.
I like it too. I really had a good time.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Always good to see you.
Good to see you.